Hello everybody and welcome to this week's reflection. I was hoping we were going to be in church this weekend. But if you can't be in church, you may as well be in the great cathedral of the Yarriambiack Creek. There's a few frogs croaking along the creek here. There's also a bird stalking the noises for food. And if you look closely, that bird might return in the background. I did take a view of the bird earlier, and this is what it looks like. So you know what you're looking for. And if the bishop asks, where is the green sheep? Then I can ask, where is the creek stork? Mark Twain's quote: "If your job is to eat a frog, it is best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it is your task or your job to eat two frogs, then it's better to eat the big one first." I love these words. It's so invigorating. It's so out of the box. I love it. And in another week of coping with the COVID restrictions that have been placed upon us, let's eat our frogs, and I hope you find a good sauce to eat it with. Instead of a frog, I'm going to have a cup of tea down here by the creek. So a big shout out to the tea drinkers around the world, especially Tara Tuttle, who's always saying, get a cup of tea in here, Woodsy. Or Eddie Gilmore over there in England. So cheers. The gospel readings for these next few weeks are fairly tricky, actually. Jesus doesn't mess about. And this Sunday, he talks about the sower who goes and sows good seed in his field. But while he was asleep, the enemy came and sowed weeds in the wheat. And they sprung up together. And the servants of the farmer said, "Shall we go and take the weeds out?" He said, No, let's wait for them to grow together, lest as you're pulling the weeds, you also pull the good seed from the soil as well. And there are consequences to this parable, which I'm not going to go into completely today. But the question we may well ask, with our own circumstances, with our own personal situations, is why doesn't God do something? You see, there's a few gospel truths, and one of them is the confrontation of good and evil. I've often heard people say, why doesn't God just come and heal every sickness? Why can't God just change the world? Stop drug trafficking, stop human trafficking, stop violence, stop abuse. We human beings are interesting creatures because while we may want God to arrive and change a situation to suit our needs, I don't think we want God all the time, because that would be the deal. God has allowed us to act freely. And I guess at its base level, every human being, I believe, is born good. As we grow, as we face the world, as we cope with our fears, our anxieties, our joys, our need for control, as we use our talents, sometimes our behavior is not always good. I've told you this before on another occasion. But when I was a young man, I was perfect in every way. Or so I thought. And I couldn't understand why the world was so messed up, or other people did all the wrong things. And as I've grown up, I realized that actually I wasn't as perfect as I thought I was. And the perfect that I rejoice in now has both good seed and there's quite a few weeds scattered in among my so-called field or paddock. The essence, of course, of our human being on the planet, I believe, or certainly one of them, is that you and I are called, invited to nourish all that is good within our lives. And to slowly discern where the weeds are and to get rid of them, burn them, banish them from our lives. So that that joy that God promises through these gospel parables dwells deeply within us and isn't distracted by the reality of evil. And even, shockingly enough, as much as each human being has the potential for good, we'd have to admit that every human being also has the potential for evil, for destruction. For me, it's a sober reminder that we must work at tending our field, tending our heart. To recognize in ourselves and in others the good that should be nurtured, celebrated, championed in a way. And I think to help each other get rid of the weeds, get rid of the potential for things to always go wrong. To get rid of the potential for death rather than life, to get rid of the potential for despair rather than hope, and the potential for darkness. We ask God's light to shine on our hearts and our lives and in our homes. These gospel passages are essentially all about waiting in the next few weeks. And waiting is sometimes very difficult. It exposes us in a different way, in a new way, maybe an unfamiliar way. And for our Christian walk with God, a lot of our waiting has been almost fulfilled through the death, the burial and the resurrection of Jesus, the great Easter mystery. But there's still something unfulfilled about this waiting within our lives. And so essentially we are encouraged to take this waiting seriously, waiting for the church to open, waiting for healing to really take hold of our lives, waiting to develop skills to cope with situations in our life that may be unfamiliar to us, waiting for our own mind, in a sense, to catch up with our heart. I'm grateful for Tom Wright, one of my commentators, for this thought. And I'd like to finish with a quote. We wait with patience, not like people in a dark room wondering if anyone will ever come with a lighted candle, but like people in the early morning who know that the sun has arisen and are now waiting for the full brightness of midday. I wish you well in all your endeavours this week, and we'll see you again soon.